Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Creating a New World. My name is Bill Hunsicker, and I'm your host. I'm the state chair for the 12 Visions Party of New Jersey. Let me introduce our panel. First, we have the treasurer of the 12 Visions Party of New Jersey, Harry Dolgen. Hi, Harry.
Hi, Bill. I'm thrilled to be on this episode 3, and want to just say hi to Bob McCaffrey and Sage Sadakura. Hi.
Hey, Harry.
Next, we have Bob McCaffrey. He's the first vice chair of the 12 Visions Party in New Jersey. Well, welcome to the show, Bob.
Hi, everybody, and I'm happy to be here, and welcome to everybody that's online viewing us.
And we also have Sage Katakura, who is the secretary of the 12 Visions Party in New Jersey. Hi,
Thanks,
Sage.
Bill. Hi, Bill. Good to see you. Good to see all you guys.
Hi.
And talk about what we want, the future.
Thank you. This show is about the 12 Visions world, a world of freedom, wealth, health, peace, and peace. Author and entrepreneur Mark Hamilton thought about what a world without initiatory force would be like, and he chose to write the result in the form of 12 visions. Here they are. Vision 1, become the person you were meant to be. Vision 2, live the life you were meant to live. Vision 3, feel extraordinary. Vision 4, stop aging. Vision 5, get the job of your dreams. Vision 6, start the company you always wanted. Vision 7, embrace the lover of your fantasies. Vision 8, diet down to the body you always envied. Vision 9, become a genius. Vision 10, surround yourself with geniuses. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave that will make you a millionaire. Vision 12, enjoy nearly perfect physical and mental health. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Yeah. Unfortunately, it does not exist except as an idea. On this episode, we will look at Vision 3, feel extraordinary. In today's world, we are all pushed and pulled by the forces of nature, such as lust, jealousy, envy, greed, gluttony, etc., making us dissatisfied and unhappy. Most people work all of their lives only to retire in poverty. In the 12 Visions world, without government overregulation, there will be a technological revolution, much like the computer revolution and communication revolution today, where everything will be better and better at lower and lower prices, making everyone rich. As more and more people discover their deepest motivational root and become value creators, they will live a life of exhilaration that will outcompete and outstimulate the forces of nature, and everyone will be happy and prosperous. Okay, we'll start reading a little from Mark Hamilton's book, SOS Visions, and this is the book that I learned a lot of this out of. But currently, there's a new version of this. Harry, go ahead and hold that book up. And this book, also raise it up a little higher so we can see the keys. That's fine. And go ahead and talk so we can see you on the big screen, Harry.
Okay. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to figure this out.
That's the current version. Which includes other information besides the information on the 12 Visions world. But we're going to continue to work from this book because it's a little smaller and easier to handle, and that makes it more accessible. So we're gonna start off by reading the first section of the book, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Vision 3, feel extraordinary. Neothink will save civilization. And I just want to mention briefly that Neothink is a new way of thinking, a set of tools that help you organize and put things together and do things efficiently and well, and a lot of other things. Okay. Now, Mark Hamilton is continuing from Vision 2. So he says, now I will show you how our entire civilization, which includes you, will get out of the limited, suppressed civilization. This is the route most people will take out of today's bicameral-like suppressed civilization. This is not the individual route just covered in Vision 2. Let us start by asking, what holds us down in this suppressed civilization? The answer, as you will see, is external authorities. Here are 3 examples of external authorities. 1, the political paradigm. Politicians and bureaucrats control how we spend our money and run our businesses through their ever-growing laws and regulations that suppress society's geniuses, civilization's progress, and our own potential. 2, the religious paradigm. The church subjugates the mind into subservience. And 3, the business paradigm. Routine rut value-producing jobs stifle the mind versus exhilarating value-creating jobs described in Vision 5. Those are 3 major examples of external authorities. Vestiges of the bicameral mentality when external authorities told us how to live, as explained in the Vision prologue, pages 3 through 13. And we'll go back and look at that at a later episode. Such external guidance today blocks our own internal guidance and takes away the potential of our minds to be self-guiding value creators. Those external authorities suppress society into a sea of value producers. Now let me ask this question. Do you believe that those external authorities, such as politicians, exist and suppress us in a limited civilization because of clever illusions they craft of doing social good or spiritual good? The answer is no, although they craft masterful illusions, that is not why or how they exist. To learn why external authorities exist, I must tell you excuse me, something about severe drug addicts. They know they will die if they cannot get off the habit. They know, but it is almost impossible to stop because of the stimulation they receive. To go back to the non-stimulating, boring world of being sober is nearly impossible for them. Stimulation is the key word. A milder example is the cigarette smoker. He knows smoking is bad for him, but he does it for stimulation. And the more a person tries to show him the harm, show him how smoking will cause clogged arteries, high blood pressure, lung cancer, the more the smoker pushes him away. That pushing away is what you might experience when you try to reveal to others the dishonest illusions of external authorities. You see, external authorities provide stimulation, and that's why we have them. They are society's cigarettes. People implicitly know reality, and they don't want you showing it to them any more than the smoker does. People already know and accept the harm, which is why, for example, a former president could jeopardize national security for personal power-advancing campaign contributions, yet not be removed from office. The illusions of doing social good are there only so everyone can save face. People implicitly know the harm, but they want the external authorities for the stimulation they provide. That stimulation helps the people mask the burden of life, right to the point of being led into stimulating war, even to their deaths. Now stay with me here, for this is important. Those stimulating external authorities are actually part of something larger called the forces of nature. External authorities come from a mutation of our bicameral mentality of the ancient past. The bicameral mind was 3,000 years ago part of nature. External authorities in that primitive nature-controlled mind formed the crucial social and political fabric for civilization to survive. But we no longer should be controlled by nature. Remember, consciousness is supposed to control nature. Other forces of nature we are trapped in include, and here there's a table, and I'll read through it really quickly. We were driven to mate with symmetrically superior specimens, i.e. beautiful lovers. And the second thing is the destructive stimulations control us. Animalistic lust disregards human psychological needs in romantic love. We developed strong competitive drives. Preying on weaknesses in others disregards human love for his fellow man. We harbored a strong drive for moment-to-moment prosperity. Pursuing immediate financial gratification disregards human need of pursuing one's deep motivational root. We needed the silverback to lead the clan. Political leaders disregards the human ability to lead oneself. Followers needed to be led. Followers disregards human integrating powers of the mind. Advantages came from group acceptance and popularity. Attention-seeking disregards human route to happiness and success, which is value creation. External authorities were part of bicameral man's nervous system, i.e. the voices of the gods, and survival system, i.e. directives from god kings and oracles. External authorities disregards human consciousness and prevents leap into neothink. Okay, we're going to stop there and talk about that a little. To me, this means that that the world around us is stimulating. We see it everywhere. We see it on TV. We hear it in the music that we hear, in ads. You know, they say that sex sells, and that's because it stimulates us. And therefore, you know, the whole world is awash with stimulation, just constantly batting at your mind and distracting you.
So true, and that's something you always have to fight, you know. And it's the discipline that comes up each and every day that gets easier over time from knowing about it. But it's so true, Bill. And I know all my friends, after like becoming aware of this, I've lost a lot of friends, kind of, or not lost a lot of, but I just I see them less because I'm not as controlled by those same illusions that they're constantly being pulled this way and that for, and I can't relate to it as much as I used to.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Harry.
No, I was just going to say, since I'm the newest member on this panel, I have difficulty with stimulation. What it does for me, I watch a lot of TV. Okay? Now, I know it's not good for me, but like tennis, I watch a lot of tennis. I know that if I found my Friday night essence, my deepest motivational root, then I probably wouldn't be, I'd be more stimulated by that than I would by forces of nature. Okay, so I think it's very important to understand most people don't have their essence yet. Okay,
Right.
so they rely on stimulation that anti-civilization brings to them. And once you do find your Friday night essence, I think then it's very easy to you know, to get away from, I guess, these forces of nature and use the forces of neothink, which I hope Bill will discuss later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much where I am. I don't know how you feel, Bob, Sage, or Bill, but that's how I feel about it.
That's the TV, Harry, is a great example of a great benchmark to put your Friday night essence or your real passion against. I think that it shouldn't be hard. You like to watch the TV because it feels good, it's easy,
Right.
and that sounds right. You know, your passion should override that, and it's true. But I think from experience, I'm learning it's not that easy at first. You have to really dive into sticking with your Friday night essence and taking it seriously, and giving it over time, giving it a little more time than the TV's getting time. And from there, progress happens. and stimulation comes from looking inside that rather than at that TV screen outside. That's what I'm realizing. But it's not so easy at first, but it's awesome because it feels like you're watching TV all the time when you're doing what you love to do.
Interesting. Very good. Yeah.
It's an effort to begin with, and it's like they say, anything that you do, if you do it for 30 days or longer, in time it'll become a routine, and then it won't be an effort anymore. And that's where the Friday Night Essence comes in. You do it for 30 days and more on a regular routine, and then it just becomes natural, and it's not a problem anymore.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I found at first, because I used to watch a lot of sitcoms a while ago, and then I slowly kind of transitioned from that to watching a lot of educational programs, especially once we got a lot of educational channels on cable, and I was doing that, but unfortunately a lot of those educational cable channels switched from educational programming to reality and sensationalist programming instead of real science education. And so I basically got tired of that and stopped watching that. But I still have several ways that I still get stimulation rather than, follow my Friday Night Essence and my deepest motivational route. And this show is one way I'm trying to follow my motivational route rather than spend time either on the internet or watching movies or reading fiction, which is okay, but not if you do it all the time.
Good point. Yep, all the time. Yep, that's the word.
Yep.
The phrase. Yep.
I think it's the value you get too. It's not it's not against the law, but it's still much more stimulating. You find out once you get into it, and that's a personal realization that I think you have to go through.
Okay, who would like to read the next section, titled on page 56, titled "Forces of Neothink"?
Forces of Neothink. Well, I have the book. You want me to read, guys?
Go.
I'd love to, Harry. You're doing a great job.
Yep.
I don't know if Bob, you have the book. I'll start. Okay, Forces of Neothink, Inner Circle Vision. We are trapped in the forces of nature. We are addicted to their destructive stimulations, including external authorities, in order to relieve the burden of life. In this suppressed civilization, revealing all the illusions in the world isn't going to change that. So, what will? On an individual basis, the feeling from becoming the creator frees us. That's in Vision 2. That feeling, living the life every human being was meant to live, is far, far more stimulating than the life of a value producer, the life no one was meant to live for more than a few decades. But, as I have said, that initial leap from a value producer to a value creator will at first be a small, albeit growing percentage of people. So what will free civilization as a whole from the forces of nature and our addiction to the spiral of death stimulations? The answer is something so stimulating that it outdoes stimulation from the forces of nature to pull civilization free from them. That something so stimulating is the forces of neothink in the developing super society. Example, society in the approaching 20 visions world. Those super society stimulations will pull us free from the spiral of death stimulations. Wow, that's powerful. Very powerful there.
Go ahead and read the next section too, Harry.
Okay. Next section is super society stimulations. Pulls us from the suppressed civilization, and this is an inner circle vision. For example, in the super society of the 12 visions world, everyone becomes wealthy through a technological revolution. The computer revolution, in which buying power multiplied thousands of times, was a forerunner to a much larger universal technological revolution to come. That technical revolution, as we enter the super society, will make us wealthy. Our buying power will multiply many times over in all industries, from medicine to home construction. Imagine the super society stimulations. Everyone becomes wealthy. Wow. Contract that to today's spiral of death stimulations that leave most of us on a tight budget. The super society rises from the forces of neothink. Today's society rises from the forces of nature. If everyone is wealthy from the forces of neothink, then people will leave behind the forces of nature. For instance, people will no longer search for immediate financial gratification, for they will already be wealthy. Instead, they will now pursue their deepest motivational route and go on to become the value creator. As the super society stimulations start to build momentum, they will obsolete the spiral of death stimulations, put them head to head, and there is no contests. The external authorities will no longer be needed for their spiral of death stimulations. Without external authorities, all the properties of civilization change, as explained throughout the 12 visions. And with those changed properties, everyone easily, naturally, becomes the person he or she was meant to be, the creator, filled with growing exhilaration. Then, with the sudden demand for longer life, and with the freedom for industries to pursue it, the cure to aging will naturally follow. When super society stimulations supplant the spiral of death stimulations, we will have a cure to aging. And that cure to aging is in Vision 4. Wow. That section's really powerful for me, let me tell you.
Yeah, this is what we want. This is where we're going. This is where we want to go. This is the 12 Visions world, a world of amazing technologies, low prices, because prices will just go down and down because people will find more efficient ways to make all these amazing things.
Right.
And you know, it'll be like computers. 20, 30 years ago, a computer would cost you $1 million and wouldn't do half what the computers a lot of people have on their desks today that they bought for less than $1,000 can do. It's just, computers are amazing, the way they've developed and how fast and how much they can do. And nowadays, you have a computer you can hold in your hand. It's called a cell phone. And that's amazing too, because this computer can do almost everything that the computers on our desks can do. And imagine that kind of progress in every industry, everything you can think of, housing, cars, you know, everything.
And
I mean, it's just amazing, and it's, you know, this is what we should want. This is what will get people motivated, and this is what motivates me.
And you know, most of the people watching this, and even us, are caught in this other paradigm where we're all working, you know, just to get by, you know, in many respects. And it takes everything you got to get above the, you know, where you're living pretty comfortably. But it seriously takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And with those technologies, like you were saying, Bill, and people just loving what they do more, you're talking about a lovely place with more abundance, and people having such a nice demeanor about them, you know, kind of like when you're a child. It seemed like, you know, when children meet, everybody's a little kinder to one another on most examples. But when you get older, everybody's out for themselves and trying to, you know, understandably, in this suppressed civilization, people are trying neck and neck against each other, and it's not the nice thing you envision when you were just getting started here.
You're absolutely right. Happy people are helpful, outgoing, friendly, and kind to each other.
That's right. Not preying on the weaknesses in other people.
Right.
Right?
Beam me up.
That's what I want. Do you have anything to add to that, Bob?
No, not at all.
Okay, no problem. Would you like to read the next section?
Sure.
Starting on page 57, Super Society Stimulation. Go right ahead.
Okay, the way things are, Inner Circle Visions. Let us begin with the beautiful woman married to a tall and handsome, broad-shouldered man who looks as though he was born a man, no traces of boy or those days before body hair. The pretty lady, in time, will begin to look with curious eyes at the rich man, even if he's not as physically endowed, and even if she sees him physically as a boy. Nevertheless, she will look at him and wonder what life must be like as a rich man's wife, for she could have that life, and she knows it. On the other hand, the beautiful woman with the rich man, in time, will start looking at the physical superior hunk man, even if he's not nearly as financially endowed. Nonetheless, she will look at him and wonder what life must be like with a stud, for she could have that, and she knows it. Now the beautiful woman with the rich hunk man has it all, so it seems. She has it all for only a little while. So for her starts looking at other beautiful women, he could have them, and he knows it. None of these applies to me, you might think. Oh, but it does. It all does. Whether or not you are or are not rich or a hunk, or do or don't have beautiful spouse, and whether or not such actions, example sleeping with others, take place, there are the forces constantly at work on relationships. For these are the forces of nature, from which there is no escape. Those constant forces, more often than not, win out. Nature instilled women with a deep drive to mate with the physical superior man. Nature also instilled women with that deep drive to mate with a prosperous man. Nature instilled men with a deep drive to mate with a physically, symmetrically, example, beautiful woman. Those are the forces of nature from which no individual human being can escape, no matter how intellectual, moral that human being may be. Whether or not he or she acts on those forces is up to the individual. But the forces are there, always there, in everyone. Those constant forces quietly push the happy couples towards becoming distrustful, unfaithful, anxious, insecure, and unhappy. Let us shift from the romantic relationship to the platonic relationship. Do we really feel love and compassion for our fellow man? To the contrary, down deep we hope for faults, errors, weaknesses in others. No matter how much we deny it or hate it, it is our suppress it. We do secretly applaud weaknesses in others because that lessens the competition for us and our survival. That competitive drive to subjugate our peers is fundamentally the force of nature for our survival. That constant force of nature quietly pushes happy friends, neighbors, and co-workers towards jealousy, hate, spite, and envy. What we are saying here about the world we live in, the problem gets even more complicated. Consider that our lifelong relationships with our livelihoods most often exist for the money and not for the love of one's work or accomplishments. In fact, most people go through life despising work, never knowing what they would love doing or what they could even love their work, seeing work only for financial survival. That powerful force of nature, from which there is no escape, results in quiet dislike for our work, where we spend a large percentage of our lives on the grand scale of life. The inescapable force of nature steadily pushes us into unhappiness and camouflaged failure. Looking further into the forces of nature, consider that in society of animals living together, nature produces leaders. Those leaders say the silverback of the gorilla clans get treated to the best life, the best food, and the best females. Likewise, in our society, the forces of nature produce political leaders. Some individuals are driven to seek power through politics, others file it looking towards the political leaders for the economic advantage. In any case, the forces of nature that dominates our society. This need for political leaders pushes society towards oppression, corruption, illusions, and gullibility. How deep do the forces of nature affect us? In our personal lives, we seek attention. Everyone does. What toddlers, years before they ever have a romantic or monetary thought, they seek attention. It is the most basic human desire from the toddler to the teenager, to the senior citizen. Seeking attention is also a raw force of nature, the animal that gets more attention and approval. The popular one does best in society. However, this force of nature pushes humans towards egotism and terribly immature decisions. In conclusion, the civilization in which we live is an anti-civilization that pushes us towards distrust, unfaithfulness, anxiety, insecurity, unhappiness, jealousy, hate, spite, envy, failure, oppression, corruption, illusion, gullibility, egotism, and immaturity. And we cannot escape those forces of nature because we are still unnaturally part of nature.
Wow.
Thank you, Bob.
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and continue on to the next section.
And I see this probably
Go ahead.
a lot more than a lot of us on this panel, maybe, because of where I work. I'm working in a plant where there's about 500 people, and they're all a lot of them are minorities, and it's just amazing to me that people have wives and families and kids at home, and yet this, as they talk about in here, all this playing around, so to speak, that goes on with people at work, and it's unbelievable at times.
It's lust. Yeah, just once. It's telling me, the passage that got me was the woman who gets a rich man, she's happy for a while, and then she's not happy, and then she wants the real handsome hunk man.
Mm-hmm.
It's all lust, and it's constantly tugging and pulling at you. It's a force of nature, and that's why the forces of neothink hopefully will outstimulate all these forces of nature that you discussed on the chart, Bill. It's tough. It's tough.
And also, it's everywhere you look, people are backstabbing each other and doing things to to push them down so they can get ahead. And
right.
It's the kind of world, the civilization we live in, and it just destroys people's lives, and it even hurts the people who are pushing people down and hurting them.
Yeah.
And our society and the television's encouraging, and that's the sad part about it.
Very true.
Yeah.
And
okay, go ahead.
Go on, Bill. Well,
okay, I'm going to go on to the next section. Why so destructive? Why are the forces of nature so destructive to man and civilization, creating this anti-civilization in which we are trapped? The answer is the conscious man, as you will learn in the first insight of Book 3, which is another part of this series of books, does not belong to nature. Human consciousness transcends nature. left behind with the bicameral man 3,000 years ago. Nature could evolve no further than bicameral man. Human consciousness was a man-made leap beyond nature. The forces of nature were valuable and vital in a system designed by nature. But the forces of nature, as you can see, wreak havoc on a system outside of nature. In many respects, without fully knowing why, original spiritual leaders such as Lao Tzu, Buddha, and Jesus sensed this and sensed forces that transcended nature, meant for consciousness, conscious man, such as love and compassion, obsoleting hate, spite, and envy. As those spiritual leaders learned, it is almost impossible for an individual to escape the forces of nature and leave this destructive anti-civilization that continues to wear us down. An individual can intellectually know the way things should be, say in marriage, business, politics, and personal relationships. He or she can even intellectually see and acknowledge what is wrong with the way things are now. But for that individual to emotionally escape the forces of nature is, well, nearly, if not impossible. He is trapped.
Interesting.
That's why even now, you know, even though I think about it every day, how I want to focus on, you know, things that are part of my deepest motivational root, I'm constantly distracted and stimulated by things and end up not doing half of what I want to do.
Yeah. Like you said, Bob, it's like this all over the media. Everywhere you go, there's stimulation. What do you do?
So Bill, what does he go on to say as the solution again to getting out of that? And I agree 100%. That's something that we all, he says, if it's difficult, if not impossible to do, and I'm in full agreement with that from my personal experience. No matter how hard you try, and you know that it's the way it should happen, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yep. You know it's what would be best for you, and yet you still go back to these stimulating things. It's so very difficult. It's not a matter of should, because to me should sounds like somebody else is telling me to do it.
Me too. I agree. I'm like that.
Yeah. It's just a matter of what is really best for you. What is best for you in the long term? What is best for you personally, and best, you know, for the people around you? Because what's best for you is best for everyone around you.
Good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yep. Any more comments before we move on?
No.
I'm gonna continue reading.
Great.
Tomorrow, freed by a super civilization and its forces of neothink. The super civilization, which is also another way of saying the 12 Visions world, answers the ancient spiritual leaders and explains exactly where we are going, why we are going there, and how it will be when the forces of tomorrow's super society save us and lift us from the forces of nature. There is a way out of this suppressed civilization. In fact, we are the first generation with a way out ever since civilization veered off course between 2400 and 1600 years ago with the Plato-St. Augustine mutation of the bicameral mentality. The Plato-St. Augustine mutation of the bicameral mentality, as you will learn in that book 3, once again, took the new conscious mentality and infected it with a powerful mutation of the obsolete bicameral mentality dependent on external authorities as designed by nature, enslaving the conscious man to the forces of nature. The super society and its forces of neothink could not rise within the bicameral mentality or its powerful mutation, trapping us in the anti-civilization. Now that's a little complicated, so I just wanted to go over that a little bit more. What this is saying is that originally we were part of nature, and we just had our brain, which was basically, you know, evolution let us reach a point, you know, but we were still like all the other animals 3,000 years ago. Human beings were just like other animals in that they just reacted to what happened around them. They didn't think about it, they just reacted to stimulation around them. And then somehow we reached a point where our brains became so complicated and we became so intelligent that we started being able to use. Someone help me. What's the word where we use something to represent something?
Metaphor. Yeah, a metaphor and
where we start using metaphors. Yeah. And I'm taking this aside real quick because this is an important point here. Where we started using metaphors, and also we were developing language and using metaphors in the language. And at some point, a human being just basically, his mind kind of connected in this way where he was able to see beyond, just reacting to what was going on around him and to start thinking and planning for the future. Right. And he shared this with other human beings. He or she shared this with other human beings. This person shared it with other human beings, and it spread to all human beings. But then at a certain point, people such as Plato and St. Augustine pushed a philosophy of, that Plato especially was saying that this isn't what we see around us, isn't the real world. Our real world is someplace we can't see or touch. And and therefore, none of this matters because it's not real. That was part of what he said. There were a lot of other parts too. But that you can't think for yourself. Obviously we all know we can. And this idea was pushed forward, and it's come down through the ages. You need someone else to make decisions for you. Even though you may not think that consciously, that's always in the back of your mind subconsciously, that you need somebody else to tell you what to do. And that's pushed by politicians, by advertisers, by everyone in the world around us that are saying, pushing on this thing, saying, we'll tell you what to do. We'll tell you what car to buy. We'll tell you what you need to live safely, and securely. We'll tell you everything you need to know to live your life. Don't worry about thinking for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been brought down to where we are now. So instead of people thinking for themselves and putting together ideas and becoming, and becoming value creators, we're pushed down and told not to think for ourselves, do what we're told, and we become value producers, which, is, that's not a way to prosper and live happily. That's a way to be unhappy and, and slowly basically get worn down, and then you retire and you wait to die.
And that's the opposite direction we're all going.
Yeah.
He said in that book, that excerpt you're reading from, Bill, mm-hmm. that the super society will rescue us, right? Mm-hmm. Will rescue you as the solution. It's impossible. It's darn near impossible. It's so hard to escape the anti-civilization. Even when you think you're above the forces of nature, they're still pulling at you. Yep. But what's going to really allow that to change is the super society. And how I take that is even Mark Hamilton, he's super rich, has a wonderful family from everything I know people who have met him, shaken his hand, and I can tell that he has an amazing life, it seems like. And it seems like even when he writes that, even he is affected by the pull in this anti-civilization. But once the super society, once enough people have this information and are taking steps to awaken their inner potential and their consciousness to actually really live their Friday night essence to a certain extent, it seems that it'll start catching up, maybe a tipping point or a point where it builds enough momentum where the super society he's talking about is in effect real and pulls us out from mm-hmm. that. And that's what the TVP is all about. It's all about mm-hmm. Being that forerunner to that people, a banner to reach around and to come behind and become, into the super society to make it easy for all of us, naturally to go there and not have mm-hmm. to be at the mercy of the forces of nature anymore.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. This has been wonderful, and I think this is so important. I don't want us to run too long, so I think I'm going to cut this right here, and we're going to continue this in the 4th episode, because this is basically, this section, this vision tells us how we're going to get to the 12 visions world. And you know, we also look at it from the practical side when we talk about the 12 Visions movement. But this is really how the 12 Visions movement is going to bring us into the 12 Visions world. And you know, I want to stay within our format and within our time frame. So we're going to stop this discussion right here, and we're gonna move on to how to create the 12 Visions world. Next we'll talk about how to create the 12 Visions world, but first we're going to play a little game I like to call Where's the Force? I will mention some aspect of our world and challenge our panel members to tell us what initiatory force is involved. And today's topic is charity. Sage, where's the force?
Thanks, Bill. Charity, to me, where the force is society's kind of guilt-filled emotion that is thrown on people very often that they should donate their money and time to a cause other than themselves. And it ties in with altruism and the fact or the belief that you almost have no choice, but you should give to those charities.
Thank you, Sage. Bob, where's the force?
The force is in the politicians pushing people to contribute and help with these charities, and then taking the people that are receiving the charities and holding them responsible. Oh, I did this for you, and you need to do things for me because I supported you in this way.
Thank you, Bob. Harry, where's the force?
Oh, where's the force? Well, I know where the beef is. It's in my freezer. But okay, where's the force? Well, that I want to tie that in with what Sage says. It's about altruism and being selflessness, you know, and having an external authority tell you that you should be doing other things for other people, okay? And that totally goes against value, giving value. You give value, you get value, okay? And most people in this world, I hate to tell you, are like that, you know? Interesting.
Very interesting. Good point.
Thank you, Harry. All of those are great points. I mean, charity is put to us as something, you know, wonderful, that we're helping people, right, that we're giving of ourselves. It's supposedly a great thing to give up something, and they say give till it hurts. I've heard one person, which I like this better, who said give till it feels good. But still, sometimes there's also deception involved with charity, because charities will contract with a telemarketing company and say, we would like you to raise, just for example, $50,000 for us, and they will make a contract that says, you know, once you raise $50,000, you can raise as much more as you want, and you can keep that. So, but you're not told that when someone calls you up in the evening and asks you to donate to the charity. In fact, the company usually doesn't even say that they're not the charity, that they're a company, you know, soliciting donations for that charity. So when you donate to a charity, you don't know if your money's going to the charity or going to the company that they contracted to solicit donations. So that's another place where force is. In this case, deception.
You're accepting it on blind faith, which is mysticism.
Yeah, so fraud, right? Fraud's a good.
Yeah, it's fraud, deception. So the bottom line is we're not saying you shouldn't donate to charities, but that you should be very careful. And if someone calls you in the evening, ask them, you know, are you part of this charity, or are you part of a company that's soliciting for the charity? And then ask them, you know, is all of my money going to go to the charity, or are you keeping part of it? So charity is something you have to be very careful about, because, you know, what in some cases, like this isn't always the case, but in some cases you could make a donation to a charity and none of it goes to the charity. It goes to the company that's been contracted to solicit donations for the charity.
When somebody's soliciting me for a charity, normally what it brings to mind to me is a little saying, and I kind of stick by it, and I like to support it. You feed a man, or you give him charity, you feed him for a day. If you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. I would much rather support somebody and help him to succeed in his life and support his life for the future, as opposed to giving him something for today.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Yeah, that's great. Good point.
I like that a lot, but I add to it, if you teach a man to think, then he can prosper and live happily.
Good thought.
Okay. Bill. Yep. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next section. The 12 Visions movement is a group of like-minded individuals with one goal: to create the 12 Visions world. This movement is being organized by the 12 Visions Party. Here is the purpose of the 12 Visions Party. The TVP has one purpose: to bring about an initiatory force-free, protection-only, service-based government via the Prime Law Amendment and the protection-only budget, forever ending the age-old power-based government and its virulent, force-backed rule of man, forever depoliticizing America and eventually the entire world, thus setting free the geniuses of society, launching the wealth of mankind as described in the TVP platform. Here's the process by which the 12 Visions Party will accomplish its purpose. With your help, the 12 Visions President and Vice President are elected. The TVP President shall submit to Congress the protection-only budget and the Prime Law Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Part 2, the Great Replacement Program. With your help, 12 Visions candidates for Congress and Senate are elected. The Congress shall pass the protection-only budget in its entirety and the Prime Law Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to be ratified by the states. Part 3, the Great Displacement Program. The TVP President, Vice President, Cabinet heads shall orchestrate the dismantling of federal bureaucracy that has nothing to do with protection of its citizens, coordinate the displacement of its resources, including the great sale of government assets to the private sector, government assets including federal land that serve not the prime law of protection. The executive branch shall shrink its size to one purpose: the protection of its citizens as defined by the prime law. Revenues from the great sales shall pay off Social Security obligations with interest and pay down the national debt. Part 4, the new governing dimension. The TVP President and Vice President, TVP Cabinet heads, TVP members of Congress shall oversee the transition into the new governing dimension of no initiatory force as described in the platform. That 12 Visions government operating under the prime law shall leap from a destructive power basis to a productive service basis, from a destructive ruling class to a productive protection service as described in the platform. And Part 5, the end of the rule of man. Meanwhile, in the states, 12 Visions governors and 12 Visions states legislatures that are elected with your help will be shrinking state governments to one purpose: protection of its citizens as defined by the prime law. The 12 Visions state legislatures will ratify the Prime Law Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which makes initiatory force illegal. All governments from the federal government down to your local town or city government will have to provide protection services that citizens will voluntarily pay for, and citizens will be able to choose from competing protection services. In each episode, we will discuss different parts of this process. On this episode, we will discuss the Great Replacement Program. After the 12 Visions president presents the protection-only budget, the Democrats and Republicans in Congress will change it to keep things the way they are and protect their power. But they will also be aware that the 12 Visions president was elected with lots of support from you, and will let some of the changes go through, resulting in some improvements in the country. The 12 Visions president will tell everyone that the real 12 Visions world that was promised is that those members of Congress that voted against and removed parts of the protection-only budget should be replaced, with your help, with hard-working neo-think people who will run in the midterm elections. Eventually, the Congress will pass the protection-only budget, and the technological revolution will begin. Any comments on that?
Wow. Where do you begin? Yeah.
Well, thank you for the layout.
Where do you begin, Sage?
I like where I begin is the detailed process that Mark Hamilton's thought out with that blueprint to make that change into the world we want to go into, or just perfect the world that we're in. It's a clear-cut, very simple, but fully rational way to do it. And it's got a great shot if people get behind it and get passionate about it. So,
in answer to your question, Harry, I think part of the answer would be we've already begun, and we're in the process of doing it now.
We got to get the word out.
yeah.
Word out.
This is what we're doing.
Yep, that's what we're doing with this show and with everything else we do. And that's what people can do. They can talk to their friends and families and neighbors. And this leads right into to the last section of the show, how you can help create the 12 Visions world. The 12 Visions movement is growing across the country and the world, and more people are getting involved. Here are ways you can help. Tell your family, friends, and neighbors about the 12 Visions movement, and if you see 12 Visions candidates, vote for them. Support the 12 Visions movement by contributing money or volunteering to help, and become involved with the organizing and planning by joining the 12 Visions party in your state. In New Jersey, we're organizing the 12 Visions party in the counties. So anyone who's interested, who sees this, in being involved in your county, in starting to organize the 12 Visions party and get the word out to people in your county, so that we can place the 12 Visions president on the ballot in New Jersey and elect the 12 Visions party president in New Jersey. Feel free to contact me, the state chair of the 12 Visions party in New Jersey. My email address is WHUNSICKER@gmail.com, and I'll repeat the first part of that again, WHUNSICKER, and the last part, of course, is at gmail.com. Okay, I want to thank everyone. I want to wrap this up because we're approaching the hour, and we want to keep these shows at the hour. So I want to thank everyone for coming on the show. Thank you, Sage.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for all the value you put out here, and it's great to reconvene and get this in my mind on it again. It's really inspiring.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate all the work you're doing in putting this together, and keep up the good work.
And thank you too, Harry. Thank you very much.
Bill, great job. Real stimulating. Great discussion. Please, people out there that are viewing this, contact us and get together with us and get involved in forming the 12 Visions Party in New Jersey and in your state. Thank you.
And most of all, I want to thank everyone who watches this video and thinks about what we're talking about and considers it. I really appreciate it. That's the reason we're doing this show. And also, if you think this show is valuable, there are a lot of ways you can support it. You can support the show by telling your family and friends about it. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, you can go to createanewworld.blogspot.com and see them there. And also on that blog, you can also see information about the Neothink Society if you're interested in that. And I just want to say I wish everyone wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom. Thank you very much.